and I am the guy behind Dayaway Careers, which is a organization that's helping and has helped college students for a long time get jobs and internships in renewable energy. And before diving into things, you know, we obviously have COVID on the mind these days, and I was thinking about just how bad it's gotten for you guys, because here it is, the middle of July, and you're listening to an old dude talk to you about how to find a job. So if there needs to be any further evidence of just how difficult situation is, there it is. But the other thing I was going to say to everybody is, if you're expecting a long presentation tonight, you're going to be disappointed. I had my entire career at Accenture, and I left there a number of years ago. But if it's one thing I came to hate, it was people who couldn't talk without a PowerPoint deck. So that's just not my thing. I'm going to make a few opening remarks, and then I hope we have a lot of questions, because the thing I enjoy most about what I do is talking with young professionals who want to get into renewable energy. So I will kick things off by saying that an obvious question on people's minds right now is, okay, given what we've been through now for what seems like forever, but since early March, how is that affecting the job market for clean tech jobs? And by the way, my world, the world of Dayaway Careers, is clean tech. So at the core, you have solar and wind and bioenergy, sort of sources of renewable energy. And then we've got the other industries that sort of peripheral and kind of work hand in glove with those. So energy storage, electric cars, battery charging, that kind of thing. So the thing the good news is that there are a ton of jobs, and it really kind of surprises me, because I thought for sure that things were going to tank over the summer, just given everything we're going through. But there are a very large number of jobs that are going up. And just as by way of proof, and the folks here tried to show me how to do a screen share, so we'll see what happens here. So I don't want you guys to think I'm just making this up. So let's see, there we go, share. So just for example, let me see, is this the right? Oh, I shared the wrong, I think I shared the wrong one. Hold on here a sec. There you go. Hopefully you can see that. These are just jobs that I put up this morning. So, and I don't mean to be annoying here, but so 57 jobs. You'll see in the middle column, there's a nice mix of undergrad, grad students, MBAs. Here are the industries. So, solar, electric, whatever. And then over here are the majors. So, finance, accounting, computer science, lots of engineering. Anyway, I'm showing off just a little bit here, just to sort of get the point across that there's a lot of jobs. And the other part, though, that's going on is, and you probably have heard this, there are a lot of people who are getting deferred start dates. And then in some cases, people are just interviewing because they want to pack the pipeline. And in still yet other instances, people they're working remotely. So, it's not all perfect, but, the point is there are a lot of jobs that are going up. And one of the things you learn when you're kind of in my world is that you really believe that renewable energy is not a political thing. It's not for Republicans, it's not for Democrats. So what I'm about to say is as close as I'm going to get to a political statement. But if there are a lot of jobs now under this administration, with a little bit of luck and a change in administration, there are going to be even more jobs, later in the fall and early year. And obviously, Biden's announcement about his infrastructure and clean tech economy is only evidence of that. So, in that sense, I think things are really, really good. Beyond that, I'm tempted to babble on and on, but I'm not going to. I want to. There's a lot of things we can say, but I'm hoping we're going to get some questions from you guys. So with that, Vicki, I'm looking at you right now. Hopefully, I can just say people can start asking questions and they can go for it.
Yeah, everyone should be able to mute or unmute themselves as they wish. Does anybody want to start us off with any burning questions for Mike? He's I didn't get a chance to introduce him earlier, but he's a longtime friend of ESW, and he's the founder at Dayaway Careers, which you can think of kind of as like an Indeed for clean tech careers. So he's definitely an industry insider and the kind of person that you want to be able to ask things. And he's really, really nice. So promise he's not going to bite.
Hi, my name's Carly. One of my questions is, what do you think is the best way to apply for jobs right now? Because I mean, you can apply online, you could, reach out to people on LinkedIn. It's kind of a little hard to decipher like whether or not you should include a cover letter or not, or, like applying to a bunch of online things. Is there much of a purpose to doing that? Just because there are so many companies that are under hiring freezes and stuff like that.
Kathy, it's probably the best question that could be asked. And my answer, by way of context here, my answer, you understand, is coming from a guy who whose primary product is an online job board. And so we harvest all these jobs from Indeed and LinkedIn and put them up, and they're just screaming for online applications. So with that as context, I would say I would not spend more than 10, 15% of my time applying online for jobs. I would use these online jobs like the ones Dayaway puts up, like the ones you can find elsewhere. Use them as a pathway for you to find the companies that interest you, the roles that interest you, the companies. And then once you find the companies, the best way to get these jobs is you got to talk to people. And so if it's one thing you want to remember, it's people get people jobs. And the folks that are getting into these jobs, most of the time, they'll tell you, I knew somebody who knew somebody who either recommended me or who passed along my resume to the hiring agent, that kind of thing. So, I guess what I'm saying here more than anything, it's pretty wordy, is you want to talk to people. And you find them on LinkedIn, you can find them on Dayaway, but find people that are in roles that interest you, in companies that interest you, and you just ask them to tell their story. How did they get this job? Probably a good idea not to ask them to recommend you or to put in a good word for you, because they don't really know you, but just make a contact and build these relationships. And over time, they are the ones that are going to get you those jobs.
Thank you. I appreciate that response.
Very
Do you see the, sorry if you can hear my dog. She's behind me, I think, trying to get my attention.
I've got a golden retriever upstairs, but he's 13,
oh,
so he's
she's
so
a little
old
dog.
he can hardly move.
I'm not really sure what she's doing. She doesn't like when I'm on my computer. So. Uses a lot to get my attention. But I guess, do you have a prediction as to when, the hiring freezes are probably going to be over? Because I feel like with a couple people that I've talked to, I guess in terms of maybe higher ups within some of the companies that I've been interested in, a lot of them have just said, we think you're a great candidate, but we're in a hiring freeze and we have no idea how long. So what's your opinion on when you think people will open up job applications back again and start hiring?
Yeah. Well, and would this be for 2021? Are you graduating in 2021, or are you looking right now?
I graduated last year. I worked as a project engineer down in Indy on a FedEx project, but I got laid off last month because of COVID and money and all that good stuff.
Yeah. No, I think, well, again, here's a little trend that's going on, and hopefully that dog doesn't eat you while I'm watching you and you just disappear, in which case my answer to your question will have been wasted because you won't be around to get a job. Anyway, here's a little bit what's going on. Companies that have big projects that have been pre-funded, imagine a big solar farm or a wind farm that's been in the works. It's, took a year and a half to sell it and another year to get it permitted and all that. Those jobs have money. They're hiring. They're absolutely looking for people. And I know people who are looking for people. So the big projects that have a budget, have funding, they're doing fine. It's the companies that have smaller projects that they're trying to sell, all the time, say, residential solar or maybe smaller energy efficiency projects. They're the ones that have a hiring freeze or they're doing deferred start dates. But again, I would keep the pedal to the floor. I would be getting to these people, getting in front of them, just getting visibility is what you need, and not to worry too much about when they're hiring. Just get in front of them, because some are, some aren't, and it's going to be really hard for you to predict, which ones are and which ones aren't. But again, the more you talk to people, the more you're going to find out that, for example, I was just talking today to a guy from S Power, which is out on the West Coast, and they're busy as all get out. Talked to some other people, and they said, yeah, they may be, another company may be ready to sell off assets because they're in a difficult space. So I guess the point, it's a good question, but don't let it be the question that drives everything. Just get in front of people and get your name out there.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Who else? We got some more questions?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Aranza. And I've been in the interview process for a while now, and I've also been trying to network and kind of reach out to people in the industry, and some of them have told me that the field right now, because of COVID, a lot of, since I just graduated, I'm trying to enter or apply for positions that are entry level. And some of the people that I've talked to in the industry have told me that so because people have been laid off, there will be people who already have experience or years of experience who are applying to the same jobs, kind of entry level jobs. So I was wondering if that's true, if that's something that you've been seeing, and if so, how competitive are these entry level jobs in clean tech now?
I think the quick answer is there is some truth to that. That and it's disappointing, but I've got a ray of hope here. But yeah, I think there is some truth to that. The thing that you will find out when you talk with lots of young professionals who are in clean tech is the one thing more than anything that has determined their success is determination. These are people who just would not take no for an answer, and they just kept knocking on doors, and they just kept trying. And it's inspiring to me, because I see people, and I'm tempted to do another Excel file share, but it could go south, so I won't. But I see people from just so many schools, and some of these are incredible schools, and some of them have just incredible engineering. And yet, some of those folks don't do so well. They get rejected a few times, and they say, oh, screw it, I'll go work for Barclays, or, I'll go work for Exxon or whatever. And then there are other people, they may be from the great schools, they may be from just good schools, and they may have just good grades, but they were just absolutely relentless in knocking on doors and not giving up. And so, a couple of things I would suggest to you is, since you don't have a lot of experience, you may or may not have internships that help you out. One thing is you can kind of pitch yourself. A tactic that I see some young professionals doing is to say to a company, look, and by the way, you control your message. So if you've got a weakness, put it out on the table and then try to turn it into a positive. So you might say something like, look, I don't have as much experience as some people. And I may or may not have all the internships in clean tech that some other people do. But I really, really, really want to get into this. I want to get into this space. And so is there anything I can do? So for example, I'm happy, even though I'm a graduate, I'm happy to take an internship. I'd like to get paid, but if you tell me that's not possible, maybe I'll listen. But if it's an internship that could lead to a full-time position, not just some BS internship where they're gonna, use you and throw you away, but if there's a chance that this internship would allow me to prove myself, and that could lead to an offer, I'm open for that. I mean, I can tell you, I could give you 3 or 4 names of people who right now are in clean tech, and that's exactly what they did. One of them was a master's student. So the other thing is offering to do a little freelance work, kind of consulting work. So if you are good at something, maybe you're really good at Excel, or you're good with Photoshop, or MATLAB, or whatever. You see a company that you want to work for, and you say, look, can I do a little consulting work for you as an independent contractor? The hiring freeze does not apply to me because I'm not asking to be an employee. I am happy to be an independent contractor. You can use me for 5 hours. You can use me for 20 hours. Let me do a little research on competitive intelligence, or I can do some design work using CAD software. If you can code, you know, God, I think, you know, anybody would listen. You can write Python scripts or something. But, you know, you can pitch yourself that way. You make a little money. Because one thing that is going on, and this is just the reality of business, when businesses institute hiring freezes, more often than not, the people who are actually running the business start playing games, and they use independent contractors to get around it. So the idea of a hiring freeze is you cannot hire an employee with benefits, and they freeze the budget, but they tend to leave budget open to use contractors. And so one of the funniest things is, you know, you'll see a business that is trying to save money. So they said, well, we're putting a lid on all hiring of employees. And then after 6 months, they're spending 3 times as much on independent contractors. And, you know, some genius goes, you know, we're having a little bit of a negative budget variance, and yet we haven't hired anybody. And I go, oh, well, maybe it's because the place is crawling with consultants. But so there you go. You know, the point of this little sermon is determination. If you want to get into clean tech, you can. You just really, really got to work at it. And it's there for you. So that's my view, and I'm sticking with it.
Thank you.
You bet. Any other questions?
I'll go next. Hi, I'm Bonnie. My question's about finding a job that will be a good fit. I graduated 2 years ago, and I currently still have a job, luckily, right now, but I'm looking to make somewhat of a change. But and I know I want to be in this clean energy industry, but it's hard for me to narrow it down further than that and what role I'd like to be in. So I was wondering if you had any advice on, like, when you're looking at job postings or talking with people, kind of what to prioritize to try to figure out what role to take.
You're one of my favorite people. But is your first name Donnie?
No, Bonnie with a B.
Bonnie. 64. They're going. These years are going fast. But so, what's your major, Bonnie?
Mechanical engineering.
Okay. So one of the cool things you will see, and I'm gonna show it to you here in a little bit, is a lot of people who are in clean tech started somewhere else. And so it's very common, you know, for somebody who worked at Intel to move into clean tech, you know, working on circuits, or, you know, maybe an electrical engineer that started at Intel moves in. And you can just kind of go down the list. I think probably the thing I would do if I were you is, so I'm starting with the fact, well, let me ask you, do you like mechanical engineering?
That's not really what I'm doing now. I'm actually in the clean energy world. Energy efficiency consulting is what I'm doing right now. So I know I like the general field, but I don't know what role I want next, because I don't necessarily like the current role that I have.
So you're doing like energy audits and that kind of thing?
Yeah, a lot of like impact evaluations for utilities. So it's a lot of evaluation work. So not super creative. But yeah, so I don't really use too much of my mechanical engineering degree, maybe a little bit for like evaluating HVAC systems, but yeah.
That's cool. So 2 things. This is fun. So when we're done, you got to send me an email so I have your email address, and I want to get you in touch with a few people who started out on your track, you know, an engineer in energy efficiency, and they have moved into something else. So that's really important, because that would be the most important thing, is to talk to people who have gone down this path, and they'll give you a better answer, than I would. But that's not going to stop me from trying to give you an answer, which is, if I'm a mechanical engineer and I've done energy efficiency work, I guess the most natural transition, which could be into something that you would find cooler, would be more into the smart grid, kind of role, where you're with some of these companies that have cool technology products, usually software based, that are monitoring the energy consumption of usually it's of a building, not individual residences, but more. So like a company like Comfy, COMFY, that is doing smart grid kind of work. And, they've just got really cool roles. So that what would be neat is the body of knowledge that you have acquired by having done these, I'm sure, very boring energy audits. But you have a feel for the environment that smart grid is working in. And again, maybe if you've been more on the utility side, then again, there's some really cool smart grid stuff going on there as well. So one thing I'll do is I'll not only get you in touch with some people, but also I can send you some an example of smart grid companies that you should look at. But let me try something before we do this. I'm going to see if I can pull up this is a really long Excel file that is going to have lots of people, and then it's sorted by industry. And just for the hell of it, we'll pull up smart grid, and then we'll see if we see any mechanical engineers. And I could end up looking like a total idiot here, so I have no idea what's going to happen, but let's give it a whirl. So, Dayaway users. Besides, and it's better than just listening to me drone on forever. So here is, now what we got to do is we've got to get to the industry. So we're going to go here, and we're going to do data, and we're going to sort, and we're going to go, yeah, and we're going to go by industry. Okay, cool. Now, hopefully you guys can see this. So these are all the different sectors that we follow. Here, by the way, this is energy efficiency. And if we look over here, I bet you we're going to find, look at all those mechanical engineers in energy efficiency. Bonnie, these are people just like you. And they're all saying, I've had enough of this. I want to get out of it. I want to get into something else. So, but I digress. So, and remember, in the announcement that came out just a little bit ago from Vicky, she said, he's one of the nicest guys. So you got to trust her that while I'm rambling, I'm actually going to make some sense. So here's smart grid, and here is majors. Woo, look at that. So mechanical engineers in smart grid now, oh, where is, hold on. I was trying to find the, title. Okay, so let's open this up. Let's see. Now somewhere there's somebody saying, I'm never going to be able to ask my question because he's spending forever on this person doing this. But this is fun. Ready? Okay, so mechanical engineers, energy engineer, product analyst. Now that would be cool. Being a product manager or a product analyst, because you're going to get involved with the business aspects. You're almost like a mini chief operating officer. And in smart grid, it's really important that you have an engineering background, because you got to understand the product, and the product usually has something to do with engineering. Here's strategy and engineering analyst, project finance associate. And again, these people are all mechanical engineers. Now I'm kind of hiding the deck from you. Some of these people may have masters. So, that changes things a little bit, but there you go. I hope that gives you an answer. Boy, I talked a lot. So what you want to do is you want to email me. It's mike@dayawaycareers.com. And I'm going to get you in touch with some people who are like you. I think in a couple instances, there's one person, well, I digress, but I'm going to get you in touch with some good people. And I'll also send you smart grid companies more of these so that, you won't have to rely on what you saw on my screen share for 37 seconds. Is that a little bit helpful, Bunny?
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Congratulations on what you've done, though. I mean, it's huge. And by the way, and I hope this doesn't come across as a sexist remark, but so we wrote an article a little bit ago where we looked really hard at how many women there are in clean tech. And the answer is about 32%. So, what you're doing just is a little tougher, right? Because there's a lot of guys in it. And so it's just, to me, it's really, really cool to see young women professionals in clean tech. And if I can help you get to the next level up, whatever that is for you, it would make me happy to do so.
Great. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
I have another question unless someone else wants to go, because I know I've already asked two.
Hey, is the dog still alive?
Yeah, she's like chilling over here and sleeping.
Okay.
So
Oh, there you go.
she tired herself out. For now, at least. She'll probably be crazy in a few minutes. So what is your opinion on getting a master's degree? Do you think that's something someone would need to kind of better survive in the clean tech industry? Or do you think it's a good move, I guess, like if you have trouble finding a job, like do you think you should go back and get a master's degree and maybe something a little more focused on, I guess, what you could see yourself doing?
Yeah. I think it's a great idea if you have something specific in mind. And so it almost always is a great idea if you've worked a year or two first, because, you're not going to do it then unless you have something specific in mind that you're after, because your opportunity cost is high, the cost of school, you've gotten comfortable with your job and making money in the apartment. And so, if you go back for a master's after having worked a little bit, I think it's a terrific idea. I think going straight from undergrad to a master's can be a great idea, particularly if you want to go into research. You really, the science, draws you. I think that is an example of a good reason to go straight. And what I'm about to say is probably more the parent in me coming out than the sort of fact-based mentor. But, I think sometimes when people just sort of roll from undergrad into grad school, sometimes it's a little bit, it's your hiding, I think, a little bit. You're doing what, here you go. The human condition is we like to do what we've always done. It's familiar, it's you're confident at it. And so, the idea of, okay, I did undergrad and, I'm smart because I tested well on ACTs or SATs and I did well at the school. And so, grads, it's easy, it's familiar. That's probably not a good reason. And also, if the idea is you want to get into clean tech and you still don't know what it is you want to do after having finished your undergrad, odds are it's going to be even harder to get in with your grad degree because the expectations will be greater of you. If you haven't picked up experience along the way, you do run that risk of getting labeled a little bit of, oh, it's a professional student, or, they don't have any real world experience under their belt and now they're a master's student. So I'm going to have, a grad degree, I got to pay even more. So, I guess the summary is if you got a really good reason to go, then I think it's a really good idea. And there's on that Excel file that I pulled up, I don't know, there's probably 30% of all the people that I'm aware of do have a graduate degree. Now, when they got it, I couldn't tell you, but yeah, there's plenty of opportunities for grad students. But again, I think you want to have a good reason.
Okay, thank you. Are there any like master's programs that you would recommend to somebody looking to kind of get more advanced knowledge in like the clean tech space?
There's a bunch of good ones. Yeah, I'm tempted to start winging it here, but I won't. There are a lot of good ones, but here's something. When you get to that point, you really do your research because some of them emphasize different things, right? So, like IU has a wonderful environmental. Pulling a blank on it, but But, you know, so IU, I know Indiana University has a very nice emphasis for environmental. You know, Duke, Nicholas, I think it is, has a great, you know, joint MBA master's program. You know, Michigan, well, there I go. So I'm here. Let's do this. Let's not play around with it. Hold on a sec. So I'm going to go back to the old screen. Oh, what did I do? What did I do? So let's see, I need to do a screen share again. And I'm going to do this. Okay. And by the way, if you guys want any of this data later, I'm happy to give it to you. So what we'll do is you can take a look at the master's student. Oh, and I'll show you another way you can do this as well. So, so did I? You are screen. Okay, so I want to do data. So, don't laugh at me because I'm slow. I get there. I can get there faster than any of you can because I got the data. Well, I sorted on the wrong way. Why isn't that?
I love that some of these degrees are like political science, geology, theater studies. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, there's all sorts of good stuff. So these are all masters. So these are students that are, they have their master's degree. So let me open this up here just a sec. Actually, what will be interesting is we'll just go down this, and you can tell by the number of entries sort of how popular these schools are. So, and I'll just go through them really fast. There's Arizona State. We'll pause at Columbia, huge number of people. And mine are all kind of randomly drawn. So, you know, I didn't skew this data in favor of any school. So these are fairly representative. A lot at Columbia. Duke, huge number of people at Duke. You know, Georgia Tech, I guess that's more the engineering. Indiana. So Hopkins, good bunch at Hopkins, MIT, of course, NYU, a lot at Northwestern, a lot at Stanford, a lot at Berkeley. Everybody wants to go to Colorado because you can smoke weed and hike, and you know, maybe you get a degree, maybe you don't. I shouldn't have said that. That's terrible. Michigan, a lot of people at Michigan. Texas, good numbers. A lot at Wisconsin, good number at Yale. So there you go. There's so there's probably what, you know, there's a dozen schools where there's a noticeable concentration. And then there's a whole lot of other, and these people are all, you're not in this file unless you're working in clean tech. So there you go. Stop screen share.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, Vicky's getting ready to cut me off.
Oh, Jeshna wrote in a question. I wanted to make sure I read it before I forgot to.
Okay.
Jeshna said, hi, I was wondering if you could also talk about some jobs or positions that chemical engineering undergraduates tend to get in the clean tech industry.
Yes, that pause was, oh, should I pull up the Excel file, which I can, but you know, just very quickly, how I look at things are industry and role. So the chemies are going to very often go into bioenergy. You know, this notion of biomass or biofuel, and that's just obvious, right? Because you're working with enzymes or you're working with other, you know, chemicals. And then battery storage and fuel cell are industries. Those would probably, and you know what? The other would be consulting in part, and that kind of goes to the process thing. I think a lot of recruiters will also look at chemical engineers as good candidates for roles that are process driven. So consulting, you know, Bonnie earlier was, now she's a mechanical engineer in energy efficiency, but you know, there's there's a decent amount of chemies that will go into energy efficiency, and it's not because the nature of the work specifically grounds itself in chemical engineering, but again, it's very process oriented. So those would probably be, so, and where you won't see them, a little tougher for a chemie to get into solar or wind, just because there's not I suppose where the entry point, although that's actually another good point, is picking up on what I said, that chemical engineers tend to be good at process, also means they are good candidates for project management. And project management is the role to get into just about anything. And so, some people find it a little boring, but, it's this whole idea of working with dates and deliverables and quality assurance and cost. But, and, we wrote an article recently about project management. Why it's such a wonderful entry point is it's a great way to learn a business. And what you will find is people that often do project management may not be in love with their job. They may not love the pivot tables and looking at this quality variance or whatever. But what they do is they're learning about the business's products and the projects, and they're learning about the technology, and they're learning about the money, and they're learning about the pain points in the business. And so after doing project management for a year or two, then you can move into, something else, which is the other thing that's cool, is not only because of the project management work, but also because you are employed at the business and you're inside the tent. You could be looking around at what other people are doing. And you can say, yeah, I really want to do that financial analyst thing, or I think I'd be really good at market development, could be good at strategy. But start with project management, learn the business, make money, pay your rent, go out on the weekends, and then dream about, getting into this awesome job elsewhere in the company or somewhere else. So I guess that's my, to sum up for chemies, there are those 2 or 3 industries that I mentioned, and then there are process roles. And in particular, I think project management is a wonderful way to get in.
I had another question. So like I mentioned before, I just graduated, and some of the things that I wanted to do to get into the industry was to get an internship this summer in order to later on get a position in the company. However, those internships were canceled because of COVID-19. Would it still be appropriate for me to apply to internships maybe for next summer? I was wondering what your idea on that was.
Well,
Since they're usually for undergrads and recently graduated.
Yeah. Short answer, yes, but even better, because next summer's a long way away, and you're probably getting sick of, well, if you're with your parents, and my kids would. So I'm seeing a number of businesses that are hiring interns for the fall right now, and because everything's been disrupted now. And so people are improvising, we're on Zoom, but businesses they're going to be hiring interns over the course of the year. So, keep an eye on what we're putting up on the website. Get in touch with me later, and I can, when I'm not worried about the internet here going out, I can maybe get you pointed to some places that, you should consider, right now. Tell me again, I forgot, what is your major, if you did tell me?
My major is chemical engineering.
Okay. Well, again, that's all that stuff I was talking about earlier about process and project management. That's what I would be. Yeah, I would be looking, again, this idea of pitching yourself to do remote work, and that's, a lot of it's going to be done now, which is probably better than ever, because working remotely, particularly if you're interning, you're cheaper. It's bad for you because, you're not going to make the starting salary that you wanted to make. But, in terms of just getting your foot in the door and getting in the game, yeah, I would certainly be thinking about internships next summer, but I would be thinking, more immediately about, something in project management, something that's, process related. When Bonnie was talking earlier, energy efficiency, probably the most plentiful jobs. If you're, want to zero in on a keyword to kind of, limit your search a little bit, the most plentiful jobs are going to be in energy efficiency. And largely that's because, it just has a wonderful payback period. The pitch for energy efficiency is, simply an energy efficiency business goes to a business and says, look, if you pay us $50,000, we'll give you a report and we're going to show you how you can save, $500,000 a year. And it's going to cost you $1 million to do it. And so in 2 years, that $500,000 saving will have paid the $1 million that you've spent on new HVAC equipment and lighting and switching and insulation and windows and whatever. And then after that, you got $500,000 drop into your bottom line. So energy efficiency is just a very compelling sell. And by the way, if you really believe in sustainability, you want to reduce the amount of carbon and pollution in the air, it's a wonderful product. So, target energy efficiency, look for internships where you can work remotely that way. And I think that would probably be the number one step I would be taking. But again, I'm happy to talk later by email or by phone. I'm not just, shooting from the hip here.
Sounds great. And I have one question about project management since you brought that up. I have seen jobs postings on project management. However, I feel like most of the time I avoided them just because I thought they would require a lot more experience or they would require more trust from the company. How would you recommend selling myself as a project management person?
You bet. Honesty. Honesty is the best policy. You've got to be upfront. I just exchanged emails today, and I got to be careful with privacy. So I exchanged emails with a wonderful young man who is in Virginia, graduated. I guess he graduated this year. And we had the same conversation. Once again, he was an environmental science major. And I said, I think you ought to look into project management. And he interviewed today at an energy efficiency place in Virginia. The title was assistant project manager. Sounded like the lowest rung on the ladder in the project management group. But the point is, there are roles where you really don't need to know a whole lot. Why they're hiring you is because you're smart. You got into college, you got out of college, you're a chemical engineer, you're a woman in chemical engineer. So, you're obviously very capable. They can teach you what you need to know. Now, one additional thing is, and I just can't resist showing off here again, while you have some time on your hands, Vicki, you'd probably be mad at me for not mentioning this earlier. All you guys, if you're looking right now and you're not finding anything, you should be thinking about getting a little online training, practical online training. Project management would probably be the number one thing to look at. You can do the courses online. And so here we go again. I'm going to see if I can do, I don't want that. I want something else. Hold on here a sec. There's I'm going to get in trouble. I won't. Oh, wait, I can do this. Here we go. I can do this, Mike. I can do this. Okay, now I got to come back. So I'm going to show you something that I think will be very, very helpful to you if you want online project management training. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing the Dayaway Careers site, an awesome site, if I have to say so myself. There is a page, Insights, that gives all sorts of cool articles. And here's one on project management training. How convenient is that? But what's neat about this, well, there are a lot of things that are neat about this, but I will only mention one, is it not only kind of goes over what I was just babbling about, but you are going to see a list of, I think, 25 or 30 online project management courses. Some are short, some are long, some are cheap. Some are expensive, some have certifications, some don't. But the point is, I had 3 interns over the course of about 6 months. Just Google project management training and online. And so this is the list that we came up with. So I would recommend you take a look at this. And so going back to how do you present yourself? One is honesty. You don't know anything, but you think you can, if they're willing to teach it, you can learn. And then secondly, maybe in the meantime, you might try picking up on one of these courses, and it would add a level of legitimacy to you that you really are interested in it, because after all, you invested your own time and money to get a little training. There you go.
Thank you. I'll definitely look into that.
Okay.
All right. And Kenny came in with a question in the chat too. He says, what specific coursework would you recommend focusing on to better market yourself to sustainable or renewable energy markets?
Hey, by the way, you told me this is only going to go like 20 minutes. We're coming up on an hour. This is great. You just set your expectations low, and now it's like, wow, this is fun. So, and unfortunately, as you can tell, I'm getting really comfortable with this. So how I will answer that question is by saying that's the wrong question. And I really mean that. I just think that your college education, your courses should be courses that interest you. And because once you start working, a job sucks. I mean, almost no matter what you do, it's, come on, it gets old after a while. And so you better like what you do. And so, I'm going to dodge the question and say there's so many courses you could take, but what an employer wants is, first of all, they're going to have a specific position in mind, and they will want you to have taken courses that will help you in that position. They will want you to have interned in a way that will help for that position. Now, you saw that list that I put up earlier. I mean, these positions are all over the map. I mean, there's dozens of positions for every kind of engineer, for every environmental science major, for liberal arts, for political, you got to take courses that you like. And then I think the tougher question is trying to figure out, once you've decided, what type of subject matter do I like? Is it electrical engineering? Is it physics? Is it economics? Is it finance? Whatever it is. Then, having decided what you like, then you go out and start looking for roles that line up with, with that major. And, and that's kind of that Excel file that we did earlier. And that's where the jobs, if you're a chemical engineer and you like chemical engineering, then you can find jobs that lend to chemie, and same way with EE. And, computer science is a wild card because those guys can do anything for anybody, and they have 10 jobs waiting for them, and but we all can't be computer science geeks. So there you go. That's probably my lamest answer, but it is honest. It's from the heart.
If I could ask a question real quick. Hi, Mark. I can turn my video on. It's Maria, the same one who's been talking to you recently.
Hey, Maria. Hi.
Hi. I actually had a question, as a non-engineering student who actually regrets not doing engineering. Clean tech is still something I'm interested in, and like sustainability in general. What advice do you have someone who has no engineering background to like kind of market themselves toward this company? I actually also have an interview with a biodiesel company tomorrow, if you have any specific advice on that.
Okay. Well, I think the first reaction that comes to mind is probably 40%, at least 40% of all the jobs we put up, and that's like, several thousand a year, and they're all either entry level or just a couple of years out. 40% of those jobs are not for engineers. So there's tons of stuff out there. Tell me again, if you did already, your major is what?
So it's marketing, and the job is for a marketing position,
okay.
but like at the biodiesel company. And so that's also kind of important to know something about, maybe.
Yeah. So a couple of things come to mind with marketing. And this this sort of strikes near to my heart because my younger son, who I thought was sitting, right over there, is in marketing. But, I think the first thing about marketing is, to be aware that, marketing can mean different things to different people. And the one that I always find the coolest is actually what my son does, is marketing from a strategy standpoint, which is, really cool stuff, helping a business, figure out markets they want to get into and their messaging to those markets and, what is their overall strategy. And so I think that's something to keep in mind. And then there's also another, version of marketing, which is a little more advertising, a little more communications. It just depends on what you like. But I think probably that's the starting point to kind of understand within what is it that you're after. And then I think the next thing is, to determine, are you more of a quantitative person or qualitative, right? And so, some marketing positions can be very, very data driven. And so if you do have a quantitative background, they're going to love you because you're going to be working with a lot of data, probably need to know a little bit about coding or, SQL or that kind of stuff. On the other hand, if you're more of a qualitative person, then I think you probably veer more into strategy. And, you talk in terms of, so if you're presenting yourself, talk about strategy and all that goes with that. I think that's probably, what comes to mind as far as presenting yourself is kind of knowing yourself. Are you a quant? Are you a quantitative person? Are you a qualitative? What is the position? And do you line up for that position? How about at the biodiesel company? Do you have a sense of what they're looking for there? As long as you can talk about it without giving away any trade secrets.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know any trade secrets. It's more like, I think, a qualitative role from what I got from like the brief description that they gave you. So. Okay.
Because sometimes that can mean, what they're looking for is there are people that are good with social media, right? Figuring out how to, some of the things that we've kind of talked about, but how to use social media in a strategic way, right? And that can be very important because a lot of these places just, they're just not sure. They're not exactly sure how to do that. It's funny, yesterday I started watching, I think it's called The Great Hack, which is a story about Cambridge Analytica. And, you develop a lot of respect for, what strategic use of social media, can do. And they're obviously, in terms of influencing elections, but it's the same way for businesses as well. There's tremendous opportunity there to use it. So, I think once you know the position and you know what they're looking for, then you want to be that person they're looking for. So you want to give them concrete examples of things you've done. So, for example, if they're looking for somebody who can make strategic use of social platforms, then you want to talk about what you have done for ESW or elsewhere while you were at school that shows concretely, and when I say concrete, I mean facts. Kind of like a little bit ago, I put up an Excel file. It's sort of everybody can talk, but people love people who can back it up with some facts. And if you can show them things that are, come with numbers, they come with facts, they have concrete deliverables that can be described, that's persuasive to people. That's what they want to see. Hope that helps.
Thank you. That's actually very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
And I'll email you soon.
You bet.
I have a question next. I'm still an undergraduate student studying computer science and environmental studies, and it seems like a lot of the roles that I've seen and had at the intersection of these are like in energy, data analytics, and just like very data driven. And I was wondering if you could speak more about roles that are more like with developing and software engineering and coding heavy. Based on what you've said during this call, like I'm assuming there's a lot of them, but yeah, I'm just really not familiar with how I would find them.
I'll tell you how you, okay, here, I'll tell you how you find them. hold on a sec. Let's see what we, we can come up with here. It's a good site, but it can be a little slow and clunky. So jobs that are less than 2 weeks old, you know, these are all computer science of some form or another. Now, you know, you mentioned environmental science or environmental engineering. You know, I can't be sure, but I have to admit, I'm off the top of my head, you know, nothing's coming to mind that would leverage both of those. But then what comes to mind very quickly is if you can code and you are a computer science major, then, you know, maybe you lead with that. And, you know, if you see, there's just tons of stuff out there that, now these are all, let's see, I know some of these I just put up, they queue up, and there were some jobs out for electric vehicle companies, and they may end up dominating here, but so you know, Rivian, computer science, solar storage, application support analyst. I mean, the short answer is they're just massive. Well, I have a lot of jobs. So maybe in as far as making good use of everybody's time, why don't you, if you would like to continue the conversation, because what I can do offline is try to think a little more about, okay, but how could you leverage both the computer science, that sort of the coding skills together with environmental science or environmental engineering? I mean, what would be cool are some companies, I'm just trying to think, companies that are more product driven.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was looking for.
I'll tell you, well, the ones that come to mind, it's sort of the question came up earlier about, it was Bonnie when I said, you know, getting out of energy efficiency into smart grid. You know, some of the stuff that they're doing, I have seen a number of environmental engineers working in the smart grid space. So if you're environmental science or environmental engineering and you are comfortable with coding, then, you know, wow, you know, you're starting to line up with some of these cool companies that have nifty products that, you know, are either behind the meter measuring data or they're working with the utilities or that kind of thing. So that's one that'd be the 201 version for me. Let's continue this one afterwards, but I think there's some really cool opportunities out there. Okay, and by the way, go out to the site. Again, you saw what I did. Go out to the site and do exactly what I did, and you can pull up. In fact, you could pick, you know what? I won't do it now because I'm worried what might happen. But if you go back to what I just did and you select computer science and environmental science or computer science and environmental engineering, you know, that might pull up some stuff right there. I have no idea what'll happen. So I don't want to be the one to make it happen.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And Mike, your site, for those who aren't familiar with it, can you just kind of go through how maybe current students might use your site or recent graduates might use your site? I know you can sort by what degree you have or what kind of position you're looking for, but can you give us like a brief overview of that?
Yeah, let me, and again, I don't want this to be like an advertisement, but I'll pull it up and just sort of quickly show you the major sections of the site. So here we go. So it's dayawaycareers.com. Hopefully this is coming across. So there's really three or four areas here that you can use. There's this page we're on, which is the job search, and it's, you know, it's like anything else out there. The difference is I go through every morning and use 3 scrapers that pull up about 1,000 jobs and then filter them down to 25 or 50 that are just for fresh grads or interns that are all in clean tech. And then we put them on the site. So, we've weeded out just all the jobs that aren't interesting to you. And you can search here by degree, by major, by industry, by location. Term is entry if you're straight out of school, or, if you're a couple years out. So, there's the job board, if you will. There's also, if you're, just kind of lazy, which most of us are, and it's like, I don't want to be searching on a website. It's too much work. Can't you just send me the jobs? And so we have a listserv, and you can go out and subscribe to the listserv completely free. And then once a week, you'll get a mailing of these jobs summarized. And, that's going to be 100 to 150 jobs organized along the lines that we just said, which is, an easier way to do business. We've got that section that we showed you a little bit earlier, where written a number of articles about interviewing, about internships. And if it's one thing I've learned, this is a great, by the way, since I haven't seen a guy on this call yet, which is cool. So, this is a really, really cool article about early stage clean tech women professionals, and kind of as close as I can get to a scholarly article, a lot of data, a lot of facts, and some really cool interviews. But so on this section, you have a lot of articles. And if it's one thing, again, I was about to say, I've learned working with most of you guys, and this is my stereotype, so I apologize, is, you don't want to read for more than 2 or 3 minutes. So most of these articles are pretty short. They kind of get right to the point. On the, there's another section that I'll show you here as soon as we've got everybody in my house here is streaming, I think, tonight. So I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get back to the homepage. 1010, 1020, 2 years later, still twirling. Yeah. Well, anyway, so there's this section right here called Zoom In, which a little short story. Wait, okay, here we go. So here's the homepage. So we've also got a section where, I was saying earlier a couple of times, you got to talk to people. And that's hard. Like, how do you find them? Well, they're on LinkedIn. Well, that's nice. So are, 300 million people. How do I find them? The answer is you want to find people with whom you have common ground. And the best common ground is they went to your school or they have your major. So a couple of years ago, what I did was, we know a lot of people, and I know of a lot of people. We created a database and then made it so that, so for example, if you go to Duke, fingers crossed this works, you could just type in Duke and it's like, oh, wow, look at this. There's 41, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 7 people plus 41 more. There's 48 people who have gone to Duke who are working in renewable energy. Some are undergrads, some are grad students, some are MBAs, PhDs. The point is, if you're at Duke, these would be really good people for you to talk to. They are most likely to answer your email because, they're an alum. And very often, this site can do a better job than a school site can do as far as directing their students to alums that are working in clean tech. Now, the other way is, let's say somebody was environmental science. So you can just type in, I always misspell this, not science, but so environmental science. And, you got 70 people who are environmental science majors, and they're working in clean tech. So, Vicki, to your point, using the site this way is a nice way. The Zoom In section is a nice way to find people. In the end, you're going to go back to LinkedIn, and you're going to, and by the way, to use this, you got to register. Once you register, what would happen? I guess am I signed in? oh no, darn little. Well, anyway, if you were registered, these names would all be hyperlinked, and you would click on them and they would go right to LinkedIn, and you'd be able to see the person and then contact them that way. So the point of this is it's like a front end processor for LinkedIn. There's just no way on LinkedIn you can find these people this fast. I know, because we spent a lot of time and money being able to do this. So that would be probably the last thing that I would say is cool to use about the site. Now, a little personal thing here. I'm living in fear because this is actually kind of funny. When we first created this section, it was called Everyman. And Everyman meant something to me, and only me, because it's from a Jackson Browne song that I loved. And it was very spiritual and connected with my soul. And I named the site Everyman, which was a problem because everybody who used it go, why the hell is it named Everyman? So then about 2 years ago, I was talking to this really cool young woman professional, and she said, well, Mike, it's not only confusing, it's gendered. It's every man. And, it's kind of off-putting for women. And I thought, oh, come on, really? And so I talked to a bunch of women, and they pretty much all agreed. So I had to rename it. And I renamed it Zoom In, which I thought was really cool. How was I to know that Zoom is now, because of COVID, becoming this, common name? And so I'm just waiting to get a cease and desist letter in the mail saying, you got to change the name again because we're Zoom, and Zoom In is confusingly similar to us. And it's not easy being me, I'll tell you. But anyway, there you go, Vicki. That's kind of what I would say is there's a job board, there's this Zoom In section, there's some really cool articles. And then if you don't have the time to use the job search, just get on the listserv.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Hello, is there time for one more question?
Sebastian, we were waiting for you. Yes, of course.
Hi, Mike. I am Sebastian. I actually just rejoined, the ESW HQ team. But I was actually on Peace Corps service when COVID got me evacuated from West Africa. And so thankfully I actually got into that Duke program, environmental management program, but I've deferred it for a year, and I'm really interested in going into, they have a specialization for energy and environment. And so I would love to get your insight into how I might best spend a year before I start grad school, learning more about the field, understanding, I guess, at a management level, the systemic issues faced by, the grid and clean energy systems. So kind of like a broad perspective, like sources of either inspiration or insight that you might recommend.
Yeah. Well, first of all, welcome back. That sounds a little scary. I don't know, being in West Africa when the coronavirus hits, and then all the issues of getting through customs and getting back into the United States. And I suspect there's a story there, but we'll save it for later. But I'm very glad you're here. It sounds like that might not have been easy. I think. And by the way, what was your undergrad degree in?
It was electrical mechanical engineering technology. So it was kind of like a hybrid major.
Yeah. Well, I guess the two things that come to mind very quickly are, trying to decide, do you want to, try to get some kind of job? Do you want to work or do you want to study? And when I say study, I mean, there's some fantastic online stuff. I talked a little earlier about the project management, and then there's, if you're giving your engineering, I'll tell you one thing that comes to mind very quickly is, is product management, not project management. But you obviously have a really nice technical background, and maybe doing some product management courses. General Assembly, are you familiar with that?
Yeah, sort of. I had an internship in a assembly cell.
Oh, no.
What do you
I
mean
did
by
too, by the way. I coded an assembler, not well. That's why I ended up going to law school. It did not go well at all. But no, there's a really cool organization called General Assembly where they'll teach you coding, they'll teach you product management. I think now, well, obviously everything's online, but it's got a great reputation and quite a track record for engineers that have gone into that. And since you want to get more into management, it's the whole idea of product management is you kind of groom yourself to be a chief operating officer, essentially. So, you got to learn a little bit about finance, you got to learn a little about strategy, marketing, working with the lawyers, all that kind of stuff. So, that might be something, but yeah, that's my snap reaction is do you want to spend your time doing some cool online training, or do you want to spend your time, getting your hands dirty or in the field? And I don't know, maybe it would be remote working and you're not getting your hands dirty, but there are some places where, like Grid Alternatives out in California is, doing really cool solar work for the underserved. And I know they're hiring. And so, that would be an example of if making a lot of money, it's not your objective, but doing something that would teach you about the industry, teach you about the technology would be a good story for, when interviewing later. There's some awfully cool NGOs doing interesting things that, particularly, again, it kind of comes down to if you're willing to set your price low enough and you're really just, look, I want to keep busy. I want to learn something. I want some real world experience. And, I need money to pay the bills, but I don't need to be rich. That would be another alternative to go down. Does that, feel free to follow up here. I don't know if I'm answering the question or at least pushing the ball a little bit in the right direction.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges I face is I'm actually based in Hawaii. And so the job market is a bit limited when there's only like 1.5 million people in like 1,000-mile radius. But so I've sort of been leaning a little more towards either a remote role or the online courses.
Mm-hmm.
But thinking about if I were to move for a job, if it's a temporary job or if it's an internship, would they accept like my year deadline, like knowing that I'm offboarding with like a hard deadline in August 2021? Do you know if recruiters or employers kind of want you for the long haul kind of thing?
Yeah, I can't help but tell stories, but most of them won't want you, but some will. And just the funny story why I was snickering was when I graduated undergrad, this is like back in the dark ages, I had really good grades. I could interview anybody. And they said, well, so where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I said, well, I'm going to law school in 2 years. So, I don't know, 5 years, I'm probably finishing up law school. And all of them said, well, we appreciate your honesty and your candor, but you understand, of course, we are making an investment in our people. And so, yeah. And then I interviewed at Accenture, which was then, it had a different name. And I said, well, I'm going to be in law school. Is that going to be a problem? He goes, don't worry about it. Nobody stays here more than 2 years. So, it's going to depend. It's going to depend a little bit on the place and on the role. And candidly, one question is going to be, whether or not you tell them that. I'm an honest person, so I would be, I would be upfront and I would say, this is a 1-year gig. But again, that's what would take me more to some of these places, some of the NGOs. There's some places there. like the thing I mentioned, and again, I know I got to come back to you're in Hawaii, but would you leave Hawaii for, like, for example, so I mentioned, just for sake of discussion, Grid Alternatives is in California. They would probably just love the fact that, you know, you were previously in the Peace Corps. They've got 1 year, they call them, I think, fellowships or whatever. So, you know, and it pays you basically, you know, room and board. I mean, you know, it's not a whole lot of money, but it's enough money to live. Is that something that might interest you, to go to California and leave the island and do that for a year?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, here I'm living with parents, so it's free rent. So if I were to leave, it would be for like an opportunity where I could really grow in a way that I can't grow here professionally.
Yeah. Well, by all means, just for sake of doing something, check out Grid Alternatives. It may be on my website, or you can just go straight, you know, Google them, go to there. They're looking for all sorts of 1 year gigs. Then, you know, the other thing about Hawaii, what island are you on?
On Oahu.
Okay. You know, solar is really big on Hawaii, and also Tesla. You know, Tesla on, and I don't know on which islands. I know Tesla is, you know, doing well there too. So, you know, there is stuff there. It's going to present depending on the role. I mean, but you know, that would be another is if you got into like market development, where you're helping them assess markets to identify prospects. The downside there is that those can be some kind of yucky, you know, just, you don't really want it. Put it this way, if it's paid by commission, you don't want it. So if it's a salaried position doing market development for a solar company in Hawaii, you know, that would be a nice way to, you know, get exposed to the technology, to start to learn the industry and the players, and, you know, make a little money. You know, the whole point obviously is island nations, and Hawaii in particular, the cost of electricity is very high. And so when electricity prices are high, as they are on islands, solar looks really good. Wind looks good, because it's at that transfer point. So I wouldn't give up on that. I'm happy to, you know, go one-on-one when, you know, maybe I do a little bit of prep, some more idea. I will continue to think about other NGOs that, you know, that might be looking for more of a 1 year person, because you'd be, and the fact that you've gotten into Duke's program, you know, speaks very highly of you. Obviously, you're a smart guy, because that's a top-notch program. So that's, you know, that's just a feather in your cap as far as when they look at you, they're going, well, if he got into there, he should be good enough for us. So.
Yeah. I mean, a secondary thing is part of the reason why I'm deferring for fall 2021 is because of the like astronomical price of the Duke program. It's like $150,000, something like that.
Is that for 2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, it also, I don't know if there exists, I haven't done the research yet, if there's fellowships for grad school in clean tech, or special scholarship programs that are trying to prepare professionals entering that industry.
And these would be offered by companies?
Companies, nonprofits, yeah.
Yeah, the ones that, I mean, the only thing that comes to mind are kind of the, you know, and again, I'll call it the NGO, the grid thing that do something like that. You know, rather than just try to wing it here, I should dig more into the Excel files and see. I mean, like, for example, Fraunhofer is a cool organization that has fellowships. It's FRAUNHOFER, Fraunhofer. The national labs is something you might want to look at, you know, and I'm happy to give you a list of all, but NREL would be on the top of the list, National Renewable Energy Lab. But then, you know, Berkeley, Sandia, you know, all of the national labs have fantastic clean tech stuff. Now, you know, there you're going to want to target something, you know, very specific that lines up with your training, because they're looking for people to do very specific things. But, you know, the national labs would certainly be of interest. That's the only thing that comes to mind real quickly.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate
You're
it.
very welcome. And again, you know, email me. We can talk. As you can tell, I like to talk. Thanks. Hey, Vicki, it looks like everybody's signing off. It's the war of attrition. An hour and 20 minutes, and I beat them all.
Yeah, I think we might be coming to the end, but we were gaining a lot of people for a while there, Mike. Your numbers just kept on climbing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, does anyone have any last questions? If not, I did put Mike's email in the chat earlier, and I can do it again now. And you guys all saw the website earlier. It's dayawaycareers.com.
I have one more question if you don't mind entertaining it.
Absolutely.
So what's your opinion on, in terms of like certification? So like I was pursuing to get my FE, but you know, with COVID, the availability to, you know, go to testing centers kind of threw a wrench in that plan. So do you think it's really important for people to have like either their FE or their PE certification or like lead certification? That was another one I was going to spend some time working towards after I get through that. Do you think those types of certifications are important or give you an advantage if you're looking for a job in the clean tech sector, so to speak?
They're important. They're probably a little more important further along in a career. I don't think you're at a terrible disadvantage if you do not have a certification. You know, I'm just trying to think of the people that I'm aware of. I think the majority of the engineers that are doing engineering work, you know, eventually will get certified, but you know, coming out of the gate right out of school, I think the majority, you know, do not have that. I think probably if it were, of course, you know, now, I mean, you know, now you just can't do something. What I was about to say is if you had the choice between putting a chunk of time into studying to get certified versus putting a chunk of time into an internship, I'd put it into the internship, you know, to get the practical experience, to get the contacts, to develop your body of knowledge and the like. Because I think the number one thing employers like is they want to see somebody who has at least one, if not two internships, ideally kind of in the area where you want to get the job, because, you know, that calms them down. It gives them confidence that, you know, you can work with others and you'll share your toys, and you know, you don't want to be a CEO in 6 months. And, you know, they're just, you know, a lot of things come out in an internship. And so, you know, that's what they're looking for. Now, the problem is right now, you know, a lot of those internships, as we talked about earlier, they're just not as available. And so if you got time on your hands, then, you know, studying to get certified, why not? You know, if there's nothing else out there, absolutely. Just don't wait. Yeah. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to is, you know, everybody, it's time. It's make good use of your time. Ideally, by doing something you really enjoy to do, you know, not doing something that you think will bowl somebody over or convince somebody, but and that's fine, but doing it because you enjoy it and it will help. And so you know, make good use of your time.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for joining, and thank you so much, Mike, for putting this together. Obviously, everybody's learning a lot, and I think we're all learning based on the questions that have been asked. So thank you for sharing your expertise with us. We really appreciate it. Yeah, any last words?
Thank you. Thank you for getting the word out. And, you know, just one final thing. I'm not sure anybody's on the line, but, you know, I started this thing 10 years ago, and roughly about now, I got the idea. It's like, oh, I got to form an LLC. I got to pick a name. I got to file a trademark. And I started talking to people, and, you know, they would say, well, what's the business case? And I'd say, I don't have one. And they'd say, oh, you know, this isn't going to go well for you, Mike. And I said, oh, okay, we'll see. And early on, some of the first people that I talked with were at ESW. Alex Dale who was then the director. This is back in 2009, 2010. And he's now doing some really cool things, I think, for MIT Solve. And then I also spoke with Sam Malin, who was out at ESW Northwestern, and he's worked in solar a bunch and just graduated from Columbia MBA, and he's going to do his own startup, I think, now in clean tech. So, you know, the point of it is ESW helped me get going, but more importantly, I have seen so many ESW chapter members get into clean tech. So you guys have a wonderful, wonderful organization. Keep up the good work, and thank you for, you know, letting me yak for a while to hopefully help a little bit.
Anytime. You know I love to hear you yak.
See you guys later.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you so much.
Soon.
Have a good night. Thanks.